My name is Paxton Smith. I'm a student at the University of Texas at Austin studying music.
And you're originally from the Dallas area, from North Texas.
Yes.
You're one of ours.
Yes.
All right. Uh, okay, so Paxton, when we first met you last year, a video of you went viral because you used your graduation speech to speak about women's rights issues. You've been sort of at the forefront of this sort of discussion for a little bit of time now, nationally and here locally throughout the state of Texas. I'm curious what your thoughts were when you first heard of this opinion that was leaked from the Supreme Court.
Honestly, I wasn't surprised at all from what their draft said. A lot of abortion rights activists and advocates for a long time have been saying that abortion rights will be overturned when Roe v. Wade gets overturned, and they believed that it was going to happen on this case. And just seeing that confirmed with the draft, for the most part confirmed, it was very difficult to take in, and it was also very surreal because what this draft means, and if they decide to take it as the final draft as well, that means that in over half of this country, people will lose the right to control their own lives and control their own bodies if they get pregnant.
How old are you now?
I'm
19?
19. I'm
19,
19
yeah.
now.
I'm curious what kind of conversations people at school, at your university, and sort of within your groups are having about what all is happening here. Because, you know, this is a law that was on the books for 50 years, an entire generation, a lifespan. But this is obviously something that even young people like you are very passionate about and are fighting.
I think a lot of people my age are, with seeing the draft, they are finally coming to terms with the reality of abortion rights in America, and realizing that they are under threat and they're likely to get taken away. So a lot of people my age are just, they're really surprised and they're really angry about it. And yesterday in Austin, we all took to the streets with a protest of thousands of people. We shut down the road system in protest.
What do you say to folks who say this was fundamentally drafted in the very beginning, and it's just that it's taken 50 years to fix something that was wrong 5 decades ago?
I would say that a constitutional, I would say that the people of our country deserve the right to have control over their own bodies and their own lives.
I've spoken to experts, several experts now since all of this news broke recently, Paxton, and everyone seems to be in accordance that maybe the language will change, that maybe the opinion in the written articles themselves or the written documents will change a little bit, but that overall, and that by and large, what we should expect is Roe v. Wade being overturned. Are you prepared for that?
I don't think anyone is prepared for that. I don't think there's any way that we can be prepared for that. The reality is that um, when abortion care is illegal, when health care is illegal, people are going to die from that because they're going to be forced to take that kind of health care into their own hands. So we're going to see people dying. We're going to see people traveling across the country, traveling into other countries to get just basic health care. And I don't think that there's anything that we can do to be ready for that other than, again, continuing our advocacy and continuing taking to the streets to make it exceptionally clear what the people of this country want for our lives and for ourselves.
Tell me a little bit more about the advocacy that you are undertaking sort of at your level and with your peers. What does that look like for a 19-year-old college kid?
Well, for me in particular, for me, it's a lot of public speaking, traveling the country, speaking out about the issue. I work at an abortion fund where we raise money for abortions for people all over this country. But for other people my age, it is a lot of taking to the streets. It's a lot of on the ground organizing and activism, where we're organizing rallies, protests, and informational events and distributing information as well.
I'm curious, Paxton, as a young activist, what events like this, what they do to sort of shape your trajectory moving forward. Are you exhausted? Are you going to give up with this? Does this change? Or are you reinvigorated and encouraged to fight even more?
I'm reinvigorated. Honestly, giving up is not an option. At this point, it's not an option. It doesn't really matter how tired I am or how tired I will be. So I keep coming at this with the grit and the persistence and the strength that is going to be needed for this movement to have an impact. And I'm really happy to see that a lot of people, after seeing this Roe v. Wade draft, are joining the fight, and they are getting ready to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and take to the streets.
I remember sort of the energy in your speech that went viral, the way that most people were introduced to you for the first time, right, across the country. And I kind of sense a little bit in that tone, in your tone now, that you still have some of that. Talk a little bit about sort of emotionally, what all of this entails to have to take on this fight and serve as an advocate for this issue.
Emotionally, I mean, it's something that I do because it has to get done. And even though I don't necessarily want to be an activist, I have to be, because the only people who are going to advocate for us are ourselves. The government has clearly failed to listen to us. The government has clearly failed to take into account how we will be impacted by this kind of legislation. They're not listening. And so we have to go at it with action, and we have to be persistent, even if it sucks.
Feels like you've done a lot of growing up in the last year, and you kind of had to, right?
Yeah.
For your purposes, for what you've undertaken. Um, Paxton, the majority of people, from what I've read, want Roe v. Wade to stay the way that it is because that is the current law of the land. And what I have read, recent polls, is that there's a good majority of people that would prefer for it to just stay that way. It does seem to be that this now more conservative, Republican-leaning court, however, feels differently, and they are the ones in the power who can affect this kind of a change. If that does happen in this country, what kind of sort of concerns do you have moving forward for our rights and freedoms in this country as Americans?
What really concerns me is that in this draft decision, they said that there's nothing explicitly said in the Constitution about abortion rights. And that's a huge part of the reason why they're planning to overturn Roe v. Wade. But then if you look at the reasoning of why Roe v. Wade existed in the first place, it's based on a right to privacy. And then I look at all of these other major cases, like the right for gay people to get married, are also based on the right to privacy, as well as the right to accessing contraceptives as a single or a married person. That is also protected under the right to privacy. So it really opens up this huge can of worms of, if this can be overturned, if this right simply to control how we live our own lives can be taken away, what else can go with it, with
Yeah.
that same reasoning?
Paxton, last question here, and then I'll let you go. If you had the opportunity to sit before these justices yourself and have their ear for 30 seconds or a minute, what would you say to them?
Gosh, I would ask them how it's not a constitutional right to be in control of how you live your own life. I don't understand how freedom to be your own self is not protected under the Constitution. And I would ask them to reconsider their stance, because millions of people are going to lose such a basic human right because of this.
Okay. Paxton Smith, thank you very much for joining us, and we wish you all the best with your finals down at UT.
Thank you.